So welcome to another episode of our RHôNE infobites series. Today we are going to talk about our 11+Myco MS Prep product and how it's just got AOAC certification. So could the two of you introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Hi, my name's Andy Allen. I'm the R&D Programme Manager.
And I'm Dave Lehman, and I'm the Principal R&D Scientist.
Pleased to have you here today. So as you might know, I like to get guests to tell us a story about food. Now that could be the worst food you've ever eaten, the best food that you've ever eaten, or something funny.
Well, maybe start, Claire. So I've been brewing beer for about 5 years now, and I have to say that some have been more successful than others.
Okay.
The batches that I make, I've had one explode on me, covered head to toe in beer. And I've had a few batches when I've had to give up because of bacterial contamination. In fact, I should probably invest in some of that R-Biopharm gene, the product beer swillage testing.
Now, hopefully the one that exploded, it wasn't inside the house, was it in the garage?
No, fortunately not. It was in the garage, so my marriage is intact.
That's quite good then. That's always good to hear. And Dave, what about you?
Well, the example I'll recount is many years ago when I was in Australia. I was over there for nearly a year, but I spent a few weeks fruit picking.
Okay.
Which was mostly apples, and I did actually like apples before I did that job, and then I couldn't stand the sight of them, basically by the end of the few weeks I was there.
Yep.
But there was one particular day where we were sent to this particular part of the orchard, and it looked like they had, the branches, etc., had this kind of snow on them, but it wasn't snow, it was some sort of insect larvae or whatever it actually was. And so if you basically came into contact with it, you just get this kind of red smear and then black bits of, insects or whatever it was on you. And I was wearing a nice kind of white long-sleeved top on, and then by the end of the day, when I went to kind of leave, I was absolutely smeared and red and black and on my hands and face and in my hair, because I actually had hair back then. And then so was, some quite horrified looks I got from people that weren't in that bit of the orchard, and they thought that I must have killed someone earlier.
I suppose between that then, Dave, and you've also previously worked on a patchouli product as well, that definitely has put you off apples for life then.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about patchouli. Today we're, as I say, here to talk about the AOAC certification for the 11+Myco MS Prep product. So before we really get into the discussion, could you give me a brief overview of what the AOAC Performance Tested Method Certification is, or the PTM?
A recognised standard that verifies product methods through comprehensive lab testing. And that standard, that certified mark, is an assurance to customers that the product that they have is working to an appropriate standard, or the method's an appropriate standard, and it's fit for purpose.
Yep. Okay. So what all is involved in the validation process? I know it was a very lengthy procedure, but what all was involved in that?
Prior to the validation process?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, initially, so the method developer, which obviously in this case was us, they kind of worked with an AOAC technical consultant. Okay. So that's basically developing what they call the validation outline is. And this basically details all the work that's to be carried out. So the individual tests, what matrices for what analytes, etc.
Yep.
Then this needs to be approved by the AOAC volunteer expert. And so it took a good few months and different drafts before that all agreed. And then, assuming you then want to continue and do the actual validation, which obviously we did and we have done, you then need to submit an actual PTM application. So there's an awful lot of paperwork associated with that. Yep. And that all has to get agreed. And then the AOAC Research Institute, they then select an independent lab to do the kind of independent lab study part of the validation, because they would replicate some of the matrix work that the method developer would do.
Okay, yeah. And obviously, as you say, it's quite a long process, lots of paperwork, but what are some of the other challenges that you faced in preparing for the validation?
Well, given we're kind of working with mycotoxins and food, trying to actually find properly blank samples for some of the matrices, so trying to get samples free from monosin and maize, for instance, and also ochratoxin and spices was bad, and then we actually couldn't really get a proper ochratoxin-free spice sample. That then kind of made doing the actual validation a bit more complicated when it came to determining the LOQ.
Okay.
Again, just in general, there's a lot of kind of spike work involved and you're dealing with multiple analytes that were looking to spike at different levels and different matrices.
Yeah.
And so it took quite a while to plan all that work out, do all the calculations,
Yeah.
etc., to make sure everything was okay, and then also sourcing kind of suitable standards, their kind of reference solutions to actually use to do all this and get everything right.
Yeah, certainly don't envy you with all the calculations involved in that, and considering the number of mycotoxins that you are looking at. So what were some of the positives that were taken away from the work in preparing, and what are the benefits of the product?
So I think through the whole of the project, one of the things which was key to it was the development of a very simple extraction method. In fact, it's a single extraction method for all the samples that you can test, even avoiding the need for pH adjustment. And in doing that, the scientists became really experts in the product and understanding how it works, and that is invaluable for assisting our customers. On top of that, we'll also be able to use solvent-based standards, so getting away from isotopic standards, and that brings down the cost of the method as well. So when a customer gets this product, they know that they can quickly get the product integrated. There's very little time needed on method development because it's already been done, and they can get things in use very quickly.
Yep. And what are some of the challenges faced in developing and actually testing the method?
Right, so obviously Andy kind of mentioned about having a kind of single extraction method as a starting point, so trying to find an extraction solvent that was suitable for that. There was some kind of complications with that, so we kind of settled on 50% acetonitrile as extraction solvent. Is that successful? Obviously you've got, again, different analytes and different matrices, and that seemed to work for all of them. But then, because obviously it's solvent, you then need to be careful, because some of the analytes aren't going to be very good when there's solvent being applied on the amino affinity column. So, for instance, DON and HT2, particularly vulnerable to this. So, you basically do a dilution of your extract. So, on the one hand, you want to dilute it down enough so that any kind of remaining acetonitrile doesn't have an adverse effect on your recoveries, but you don't want to dilute it down too much. So that you're then having to put a whole large volumes going on the column, and that obviously then it takes longer and is an inconvenience for people using it. Also for some of the samples, we're using tween in the loading buffer.
Okay.
And we know from previous experience that high amounts of tween are particularly damaging for zone recoveries. So obviously we kept that to a minimum. And again, one of the matrices is baby food, and that's got very low legislation limits for aflatoxins and ochratoxin. So obviously we needed to make sure that the method was sensitive enough to see down to that.
Yeah. So quite a lot of challenges there to overcome and trying to optimise a method for all those mycotoxins. So you mentioned there baby food. What other methods were tested, or what other matrices were tested and are covered in the AOAC method, and why were these matrices selected?
So the reason we test those is they're kind of legislated for quite a wide range of mycotoxins. So obviously these are quite commonly tested matrices, but we also selected the spices, paprika and chili powder. Now they're only legislated currently for aflatoxins and ochratoxin, but we thought it'd be good to kind of include that because they are quite a kind of complex, difficult matrix to work with, and it'd be good to demonstrate the method worked for that as well. And obviously we have customers that test for spices, and there'll be some customers that might want to do quite a wide range of tests, and all having different kind of samples in the one run. So this would make it basically easier for them to run a whole load of different samples, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we've got this validated method, what are the next steps?
So collation of the data. So Dave was heavily involved in that and doing the stats. For our point was to put the story together in a meaningful way that we could then publish in the Journal of AOAC, which we did recently in March, in fact. We've also used the certified mark on the 11+ products as well, and that's including the instructions for use, the associated documentation, and even down to the box as well. And the article on the 11+ PTM was in the AOAC's magazine Inside Laboratory Management, which was published recently as well. And further to that, we've also shown some posters at international conferences showcasing the work.
And how does this certification impact customers, and what are the benefits of the certification to the customer?
It gives the the customer confidence that the method works. You get good kind of consistent, reliable data that meets the kind of regulatory standards. And obviously we mentioned before about having the single extraction method as a starting point, so that makes it easier for them, to kind of streamline their workflows, saving time and resources. So anyway, Claire, I've got a question for you then relating to that, because obviously you deal more with customers than myself and Andy do.
Sure.
So who actually is our customers for this product that are using the method?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we work with a lot of different customers. So we work with industries like baby food. As you said, there's the low legislative levels that they need to reach. And also they want to ensure that the product is the best quality possible. So that's, testing for them is of utmost importance. We work with a lot of feed manufacturers as well. Again, legislation covers a range of the mycotoxins. But we also work with a lot of commercial labs. As you mentioned, they're testing a variety of different samples, from day to day. And they're trying to look at one method that works for everything rather than working with different products and different methods on a day-to-day basis. So this product can really help them harmonise and streamline what they're doing and really reduce, human errors at the end of the day from working with different products. And I think also going forward, labs are also trying to automate analysis. So looking at an immunoaffinity column, for example, they can automate that on systems like the Gilson Aspect, for example, which has further advantages for them. So I think that brings us to the end of this episode. So thank you for joining me, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.